So most of us probably expected nextage by now. But apparently Bushiroad pulled a fast one on us and didn't reveal nextage, but they revealed much, much more. Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we have once again a new update to the upcoming Chronojet Strike deck set product. And this time, it's not necessarily new card skills, but it's more general information because we have a new confirmed card being included in this product. But on top of that, we got a glimpse of the entire list of cards containing in this deck. And it is looking pretty interesting. But before we head into that, let's first take a look at a brand new card being introduced and with artwork as well as skill, but it's nothing special, so we're going to tackle that in a second. We finally have the return and Justice for Arlim! Yes! Arlim has finally been confirmed to be reintroduced in Vanguard, and this time she's once again being a perfect guard included in the set, but it's the same as all the set perfect guards for standard. So this is the exact same skill that basically means that if your hand has 2 or less cards, you don't have to discard in order to use it for perfect guard skill. This is really good because for one, it's Arlim of course, but 2, it's the best perfect guard effect in standard, so you can immediately use this in your deck. Sadly, it's not the same as the original counterpart with the counter charge effect, but if we're gonna be honest, that might be a little bit too broken in contrast to what standard has to offer right now, and it will probably be the go-to PG for most decks, having a free CC potentially. So yeah, I'm very happy to see Arlim returning, and I cannot wait to see the rest of the cards and artworks because again, this is a very nice artwork and it looks pretty sweet. Now before we dive into the complete deck list for the new deck set, trial deck, or legend deck, or whatever you want to call it, we also have another update to the premium version of the product because we have another image that shows the entire scope of what the extra edition has in store for us when you buy it. And basically that's this image. So we already knew about the storage box as well as the deck box and the playmat, but now we also see these acrylic stands. I believe these are acrylic stands that you can just put on your desk or on the cupboard to have something extra nice. Now I want to bring your attention to these specific things because if we enhance this image and we enhance it again, yes, my eye spots that from a mile away. That's Chronojet, and that is a silhouette of the new artwork. And if you might ask, how do I know that? Well, if you move to the right, we see the silhouette of Chronojet, which we already has been confirmed. That is the artwork of the card. So if you move up to Chronojet, I am liking this art. It looks pretty spot on, and I cannot wait to see the actual full color image and then when the silhouette fills in, so we know how it actually will look, including with the background. Now in the middle part we see of course Mesa Gear and Smoke Gear, so these are now also confirmed that these are the 2 cards because of course they're like the original ride line of Chronojet with the original trial deck, so it's a given that these would be the main ride line cards. Now of course, besides the pixelated names on these acrylic stands that confirms the names, if you have any more doubts that these are potentially units, let's take a look at the actual deck list, and then these names are going to be confirmed once again to be the right line. Because here we have the complete list of the cards within the trial deck, or legend deck, or whatever you want to call it. Now, for anybody that doesn't know how to read moons, let me go through this list. Now, if we start off from the top left, we see Chronojet Dragon. Beneath that, for the supporting grade 3, we see Steam Fighter Bali. This is a very nice choice because it's the generic supporter for Chronojet in the original counterpart, which allows you to fix your hard card. In this case, you don't need that skill because the right deck exists, so I'm curious how it's going to support. But in NNV, it had like a search ability, but again, we don't need that in this iteration because of the right deck being a thing. So I'm curious how Bali is going to support Chronojet this time around. Now, moving up to the grade 2 lineup, we have Smoke Gear Dragon with 1 copy, so that tells us this is the right deck card. Then beneath that, we have Upstream Dragon. Yes, Upstream, one of those cards that was used to some extent in the Elite 4 combo deck with Time Leap, so this could be interesting. Then beneath that, we have a brand new card called Steam Fighter Argandia. This card never existed before from my knowledge, so I'm curious of what this is going to look like and what it's going to do. Then going down to the grade 1 lineup, we have quite a bunch of grade 1s here, as we have Mesa Gear Dragon with 1 copy, which is most likely the right deck card. Then we have 4 copies of Steam Maiden Arlim, the new PG we just saw. Then 4 copies of Steam Breath Dragon, which is an interesting include, but we'll get to that in a moment. Then 4 copies of Magnetic Resonant Gear 0. For my understanding, this is again a brand new unit I've never seen before. The name doesn't ring a bell, so again, I'm curious of what this card does. And then we also have Steam Skara GG to rounding up the Grade 1 lineup. Now, for the Grade Zeros, of course, with Chronojet as a starter, but then in the trigger lineup, we get a bit of a surprise because these are basically reprints of the triggers, but we see the Dark Stage over trigger in this product. So not the generic Cray Elemental one or the Elemental one, it's the actual Dark Stage over trigger. And we get to that in a moment, why that's pretty important here. Now, moving up to the G zone, we know, of course, the first one is Nextage, which we already been confirmed, and we're waiting for the skill reveal. But then, the second one is actually a surprise to me, because people were expecting Misty Flare Dragon, maybe Ragnarok Lock Dragon, Metallica Phoenix, etc, etc. But they chose Fade Rider. They chose Fade Rider to be the second G-Zone card. Now, interesting enough, this is like the pre-Timely G unit that did similar things as the Timely mechanic, but a little bit differently. So I'm curious how this will play out in the playstyle of this deck, if it's similar to the GR counterpart, or it does something different this time around. I'm honestly very curious, and we have to wait and see till we see the actual skills. Now, as we know, there are not 8 extra cards, there are 9 extra cards in this deck. And here we also see that 1 extra card being with the question mark, and also saying it will be revealed, or maybe more information will be told next week on the 30th. So I'm very curious of what this is. A lot of people are speculating, because it's not a G unit itself in the form of a Stride, maybe it's a G Guardian. And we are missing one very important OG unit from the Chronojet lineup, which is of course Uluru. So, Uluru G-Guard could be a possibility. We get 1 copy of the G-Guard. I'm not very confident that might be the case, because that's also a bit problematic, in the sense that if it's only 1 copy, that will force us to get 4 copies of the deck to get a playset of the G-Guard, because you definitely want to play 4 copies. So, why would you only play 1 G-Guard if you have room to play 4? So, yeah, I'm hoping, honestly, it's not a G-Guard, but the sheer fact of the implications this will have by the fact that there's only 1 card. I hope it's just some random card that doesn't really impact the playstyle too much, and it's just like an extra thing for show. Like maybe a card that you put on the field to locate the G-Zone or something. You don't have to use it, it's just there for extra things. Like, we have to wait and see. Next week will give us more information about this. So now that we know this lineup, let's analyze this a bit more in-depthly. So first up, we of course see Smoke Gear Dragon, Mesa Gear Dragon, and Chronojet all being one-offs. That basically indicates that those are the right deck cards. You only need 1 copy because they put in the right deck, and that's about it. Now, in a general sense, I'm fine with this, because that means there's more deck space for other cards, so it is probably more optimized for standard. But in a generic sense, this could be an issue if Smoke Gear and Mesa Gear have really good solid effects that work outside of the right line. Or maybe in premium sense, these effects are so strong, you want to use it in premium as well, but to get it more consistently in premium, you need a playset of those cards, which then has an issue with the fact there's only 1 copy of these cards in this product, thus being forced to get 4 times this product. And with the product being like $50 on the cheap end, it's about $200 to get a playset of these cards, which is a bit ridiculous. So I hope these cards are very specific tailored to standard and don't have any extra effect outside of it. I don't think they have like a rear guard circle skill, because they only have a 1 copy in the deck, so it doesn't make any sense. But I also hope that it isn't as strong, in the sense that premium players might actually want to play 4 copies of this card to just potentially get the benefit of these cards. If they work specifically that you need to have a Mesa Gear to ride on a Smoke Gear and to ride on a Chronojet, that will probably be a deterrent enough that it isn't going to be playable in premium. Now, that aside, also an interesting thing here is that Chronojet Dragon is at 4 copies, and I already speculated in the previous video with Chronojet Dragon not having Persona right, and with G units and strides being a thing, you don't necessarily need to rewrite anymore, and you don't need multiple copies because the right deck exists. You can always have the one-off Chronojet you're going to need on the Vanguard Circle, always have access to that particular one-off, so you don't have to run 3 other copies in your main deck, and it leaves room for other cards you can run. But yet they decided in this product to run 4 copies, or include 4 copies of the card, which is a bit weird, because they did did decide to only put 1 copies of Smoke Gear and Mesa Gear. So the argument of it's a Chronojet product, so you need to put in 4 cards, doesn't completely apply to the fact that they did it for the other cards in the right line. So either that means there's an actual benefit for having Chronojet, extra copies. This could potentially mean that there might be like a Persona Ride mechanic that works a little bit differently without having the Persona Ride icon on Chronojet. Or there might be some type of skill that works with maybe Chronojets in hand, or discarding Chronojet, or something else that we don't know. Like Steam Breath Dragon exists. Steam Breath Dragons has some synergy with a Chronojet being in a deck, at least the original counterpart. That could be a thing. Maybe they go around where nextage rewrites a Chronojet from hand or something. I don't know. There's like a lot of possibilities that they can take this in a certain direction. And we have to wait and see what road they might take. And in the worst case scenario, you're not going to use those free copies, and you have just extra copies lying around that maybe can be used for premium, because of course in premium you don't have the right deck, so maybe this is like a nudge to premium a bit, and in standard you can remove those free copies and just put in 3 other cards that you might like for a better support lineup. Like, that could be a thing. Now, the other thing that I want to pay your attention towards is the fact that this product includes 4 PGs, the 4 set PGs, and the Dark States Overtrigger. Yes, the PGs just got reprinted in the latest set, and I think the Overtriggers also got a rerun in the latest set for Standard, which is really good. It makes the game a lot more accessible for newer players, but I think this is probably the best way to go for newer players to get a good solid foundation, because this deck will probably be around 40-ish bucks in American USD, with the fact that the yen is a little bit weaker right now. So I think this around 40, 50, depending on what your local restore will sell this product for. But for that price range, having not only just a deck, a solid deck that works, but you also have 4 PGs and the Overtrigger of your nation, that's a really good deal, especially that we know where these cards go in their prices. Like, the Overtriggers were really expensive, and getting a playset of these PGs like a month or 2 ago before they announced these reprints is also really tough to get. So having just a product to any Dark States player that is interested in any Dark States deck, you can say, yo, just get this product, you will have a Dark States deck, but more importantly, you will have a solid foundation in the terms of you have a trigger lineup, you have your OT covered, as well as Pervy Guards, without needing to go for any hassle. Which honestly, in my opinion, is a really good entry product for not only Standard, but also Premium, because this also will, of course, applies to Premium. So I think with how they are handling this is really good. And it's just in the generic sense. We're not talking about any of the skills for Chronojet or the deck itself and how this deck functions. Just with the fact that these Overtrigger and these Pervy Guards are included in this deck is really, really good. Even though this is a bit pricier of a product than, let's say, a starter deck, but the starter decks didn't have these PGs, and the starter decks only had the vanilla Overtrigger, which a lot of the decks are replacing for the nation-specific one. So I like this a lot. Now, of course, the question arises, will we ever see a product for this for the other nations? We have to wait and see. But that aside, that's basically everything that we have today. A little bit less of information that we had to go over, like they didn't reveal any special effects or anything. They just talked about the generic things. They also talked about how the G-Zone worked, but that we already covered last time. The only thing that I could take away from it, they confirmed it's a 16-card G-Zone, but that was obvious in the sense that it's a G-Zone, and just how G-Zone works is that it's just 16. There's the ruling changed like in 2018 or something, or 2017 when they introduced G-Guards, so it wouldn't make sense to say, okay, Premium has 16 card G-Zone, but Standard has 8. That would be too confusing. It's just 16-16, which makes sense. But other than that, I am very excited for next week, because we're gonna get more information about this question mark card, whatever that may be. Maybe we get next stage, maybe we get more cards, because so far we only have 2 cards revealed with their skills. That's Arlim for the PG and Chronojet for its Chronojet skill, and now we have to wait and see what the rest is gonna bring. Either we see more next week, or we're gonna have to wait a couple of weeks or months before they reveal the next stuff, because keep in mind, this product is like more than 2 months away. It's actually very early to talk about this product, but you know, you never know what Bushiroad has in store, because they're revealing Lyrical Monasterio stuff alongside set 8 stuff, or set 7 stuff. So yeah, the world is their oyster, you could say. But with that said, I'm very curious what you guys think of this news update to the product for Chronojet. Are you excited about the confirmation of these cards? Are you interested in certain interactions or certain things that might come from this? Or do you have some theories regarding to potential skills that we see so far with the confirmation of certain cards? And potentially what you think the question mark thing is going to be. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/insider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything is happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!